What is up, you guys? Welcome to Illumination Lab. My name is Justin, and today we'll be getting into episode 3 of Resculpted. In this series, we'll take a scene, image, or product and try to recreate it within Cinema4D and Redshift. Some recreations will be very similar, while others will fall short, but the goal is to see exactly how close we can get it. I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a fun one today, so without further delay, let's get into it. Alright, so jumping right into the sculpture here, we're calling this the Transitional Kitchen, and there's a few reasons why this is considered a transitional kitchen. What you're going to find in transitional kitchens is just a mix of materials, so you'll often find a combination of just natural and manufactured materials. So for example, normally there's wood cabinetry, there might be paired with some sort of granite or quartz countertops. Usually you'll see a lot of stainless steel appliances with some sort of a marble backsplash here, and so typically you're going to see both a cross between both functional and comfortable layouts. I actually haven't done any sort of kitchens like this before, and so I thought this would be interesting to do within Cinema4D just because the composition is very interesting. You have really a lot of things going on here. You have this island in the front here, and then you have these really cool lights up top, and then you kind of get a nice balance of all this vegetation. So you can kind of see throughout the scene here that there is some vegetation both on the island, on the kitchen table. Of course, we can see outside as well too, and then you do have some nice different plants here above the stove. Besides the composition here, I thought this was really interesting as far as lighting goes. I thought this was going to be quite the challenge, especially with all of these highlights that you see kind of on the back wall here. Of course, you have light coming in from the window, but you also have a hint of light at the top. There may be some sort of skylight of some sort at the top here that we can't see within this composition here. And then of course you have this really cool highlight at the bottom right, and then you get this really interesting reflection off of this bronze or maybe brass island here. And so I think that will be a nice little challenge for us to try and replicate here, both with all of our lights that we have in Cinema4D and Redshift. So as far as the colors go, we have this really nice dark green at the back, and then we do get some highlights of this nice, again, bronze or maybe even a type of gold here. And so I think that will be a nice challenge for us as well, just to try and get all of these really cool colors, also balance the lighting, and make sure that the composition is somewhat similar to our sculpture here. And so I thought with episode 3 that we kind of crank it up a notch and give this a try. As you may see, this one did take quite a while to finish. So with episode 3 today, we're primarily going to do modeling. So with this, we're just going to model the scene and get it ready. And then in our next episode, we're going to throw in a little bit more color into the scene. Of course, with this, we're definitely going to work with our lighting on top of modeling as well. But with this episode, primarily we're working with modeling. And then this next episode, we're going to work on our colors here. So, but overall, that is pretty much it for this section here. Overall, I liked the composition, the lighting, and then of course the very interesting colors here. So let's hop into Cinema4D and get started with our sculpture here. Alright, so jumping into Cinema4D, we're just going to head over and pick up a S-curve here. And if you're new here, I'm essentially starting with this S-curve to create a nice foundation for our piece here. I like to kind of set up the composition originally, so that's what I'm doing here. Later on, we'll end up deleting this, but I like to use this as somewhat of a foundation for our piece here. And so next up, I'm going to go into our Redshift tab and bring in a Redshift camera. And with this, again, I'm just establishing our composition. So I always like to have our composition camera here and really kind of just establish the scene here. So first up, I'm going to bring in a cube, just shrink this down and elongate this as well. And then I'm just going to kind of put this on our back wall here of our S-curve. And then I'll just bring it up a little bit. And then I'm just going to copy and paste, rotate that cube, and just bring that down here. And then off to the left. And then I'm just going to kind of elongate that. Cool. And then I'll turn off that S-curve here. So we have the foundation of our composition here. And so looking good. I'm going to bring in a cube as well. And then with this, I'm just going to turn on fillet and kind of adjust this here. And with this, we're going to kind of create the beginning steps of our island here. And then I'm just going to elongate it a little bit here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste, kind of shrink this down a little bit, turn off fillet, and kind of bring up that size. So again, we're just kind of establishing the foundational pieces to our island here. What I'll do is bring up the Redshift render view, and I always like to use this just to kind of peek over at our composition, just to make sure that I'm getting everything proportionally correct here. And so I'll just have this going, and then I'll just adjust our camera, and then really just adjust this island. Just bring this forward a bit. And I'm just kind of peeking over at the reference here just to make sure that everything is kind of lining up correctly here. All right, so next up, I'm just going to copy and paste and kind of shrink this down a little bit. And then this is going to be the bottom portion of our island here. And so I'm just going to come in and just kind of play with this a little bit. And then I'm just going to copy and paste again. And then I'm just going to go over to the X, Y, and Z and mark this 5 each. Actually, let's bump it up to 10 here. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. So I'll just bring this over. And then this will be kind of the foundational piece to our leg here. Bring this cube over. And I'm just trying to kind of zoom in on our reference and really kind of figure out where this is actually sitting. It would make sense if it was around here. So I'm just going to leave this here, and then we can always adjust this. Of course, I'm going to copy and paste, add in a taper, and that's going to give us that nice rounded edge that you kind of see in our reference here. And then I'll just kind of play with that taper just to adjust our angles here. And then I'm just going to adjust our cube, and same with the taper as well. And I'm just trying to get it right at near the edge here, but not flush with the edge. And that looks good. I'm just going to kind of adjust this here. Cool. And then what I'll do is just bring in a bool, bring in a cube as well. And then with this cube, I'm just going to bring this over here, and I'm going to set this cube in our bool here. And then I'll throw this cube into our bool here. And with this, we're just going to kind of give this a nice cut here, and then we will adjust it later on. But I'm just going to kind of cut that here real quick, and we'll come back to that. Next up, I'm going to bring in a cylinder and just shrink this down. and bring this over. And with the cylinder here, we're essentially going to make the arm of our island here. And so I'm just going to kind of shrink this down again and then kind of put this in place and shrink this down. I'm going to bring in a bulge, fit the parents, and then I'm just going to kind of bulge this out just to kind of recreate that shape here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste our cylinder, bring this up as well, actually delete the bulge here. And then with this cylinder, I'm just going to kind of elongate it and kind of shrink this down. And then we'll just increase the segments here. And that's going to give us a nice little ring effect around this leg here. And then we do need to round this off. So I'm just going to go in and hit fillet. And that's going to give us a nice rounded edge to our cylinder there. Now I'm going to go back, copy and paste, and bring this up. And then I'm just going to select our bulge and then just kind of move this just to see what kind of shape we can get. I think we do need a cone that kind of pushes outward like this. So this is going to look good. I'm going to bring this down. All the way here. And then I'm just going to readjust our bulge and then just up the strength a little bit. And then bring this down. So that's giving us that nice cone look here. So that's exactly what we need here. So it's looking pretty good. And then just copy and paste, widen that out a little bit just to create another ring here. And then I'll adjust it just to make sure it is nice and flush on the top of our cylinder here. That's looking pretty good. I'm just going to go in and copy and paste again. And then we're just going to rotate this about 180. And then I'm just going to bring that up and then place it on the top of that cylinder that we just made there. So next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another bool just because I really like how this shape is here, but I don't think I'll be able to do it if I shrink this down anymore. And so I'll just bring in a bool just to cut off the remaining portion of the cylinder, just so we don't see it kind of popping out of our counter table here. And then we'll just adjust the size and make it disappear. So again, we're creating that look, but we didn't have to adjust the size of our cone. So we're able to kind of keep that nice curve that we have here. But essentially with the bowl, we're kind of getting rid of the remaining part of our cylinder here. So, and then of course, while I'm doing this, as you may know, it is always helpful to kind of keep your object manager a little clean here. And so next up, I'm going to bring in a null, and then I'm just going to select all of these and make it a child of our null here. And so essentially we can grab the leg, copy paste here, and then bring this over. And so we did that rather easily, and then we also made it symmetrical as well, just because it's exactly the same thing on this other side. So just a quick way to do that. Next up, I'm going to bring in a cube here, and then we're just going to kind of adjust it to the side wall here of the island. And then I'm just going to kind of bring in our camera a little closer here. And then I'm just going to go to display and kind of change our display settings just so we can see kind of the difference between all of these shapes here. So again, I'm just going to kind of shrink this down. And then with this, I'm just going to try to recreate this nice little square here. And so I'm just bringing this down, and then again just kind of adjusting the size just to make a nice little square here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste that and kind of bring this over to the right. Next up, I'll bring in a cylinder, bring this over to the front, and then with this we'll start to kind of make the outline of these cabinets here. And so I'm just going to kind of shrink this down, rotate this about 90 degrees here. Cool. And then I'll bring this up and then kind of make it flush against these cubes that we made, and then bring this up. And then really, if you are looking at the reference here, we are making this top portion here. And so I'm just trying to line up this cylinder just to kind of create that same sort of look. Doesn't necessarily have to be perfect just because it is such a minute detail here, but of course we do have to add in something just to kind of create that effect here. So same thing with this cylinder. I'm just going to kind of rotate it back 90 degrees and then essentially kind of outline this shape here. And so I'll just kind of take my time and adjust the size here just to kind of line this up. But again, we're just kind of outlining these cabinets here. And then copy and paste, bring this over, and that is looking a little bit better here. Next up, of course, I'll copy and paste to create a middle section. Same thing, copy and paste, bring this one over. And then with this cylinder, I'm just going to copy and paste again and then bring this down. So really we're working on the inside portion of this cabinet here. And then I'm just going to line it up somewhat in the middle here. Of course, the best symmetrical job we could do, the better it's going to be here. So again, similar process with this. I'm just kind of outlining this box shape here and then just kind of adjusting our cylinders to the correct shape. And then just adjusting that slightly and just kind of bring this up. And then you can kind of just do all the work on one side and of course copy and paste, and it should line up exactly how you have it on this other side. So looking good. So now that we established our box, I'm just going to select all these, copy and paste, and kind of bring this over and then just kind of line this up. Do want to make sure that it is somewhat in the middle here. Give that a quick save. Next up, I'm going to copy and paste our cylinder here and then bring this over, shrink this down, and then just kind of adjust this to the side here. And then just slightly adjust the size and keep it right here on the right side. And then same thing, copy and paste and do that on this left side here. Cool. So this is shaping up quite nice here. Actually, what I'm going to do is just go in here and change some of our segments here. And looks like I'm going to actually kick this up to 20 instead of 10 here. And then I'm just going to move that up a little bit here. Save it real quick. And then I'm just going to press C to make this editable. And then I'm just going to highlight all of these. And then then just kind of fill this in here, just like that. And then just kind of extrude this back to kind of give it a little bit more depth here. And so we have this nice little edge here. And then I'm just going to look here just to make sure that looks about right. Next up, I'm going to bring in a shear, bring our cube up, fit to parent, and then with this shear, I'm just going to adjust the strength, turn on fillet, and kind of move this up. And so with this, I'm just trying to get that curvature of the bottom portion of our island here. And then just kind of bring the width down a little bit, and then just kind of line this up here, and then just increase our segments so we get this nice smooth curvature here. And then what I'll do is just copy and paste and delete our shear, and then bring this down. So that's going to give us a nice kind of finish to that edge here. And then I'll just adjust this leg, turn off that shear, and then kind of bring this back a little bit here. And again, this process is going to be very tedious, especially trying to get all this detail in. It's just going to kind of take a lot of time really honing this in. So throughout this process, I'm going to kind of tinker with some of our shapes here just to make sure that we are representing it the best we can to kind of recreate this sculpture here. So, and of course, we're going to probably work on the minor details throughout the whole thing, but this is good right here. Next up, what I'm going to do is just bring in a cube, and we're just going to kind of outline the foundation of our piece here. And so I'm going to establish some sort of counter here. And then bring in another cube just to kind of outline that back cabinet here. And then actually with this too, it's probably actually smarter to outline a lot of our scene here just to make sure that we are getting the composition right. I feel like if we work on the detail aspect a little too early, we may have to readjust our composition just because we really didn't work on the outline of our piece so much. And so that would become a little harder, especially with all these shapes we're adding in. It's just going to kind of be a whole mess. So I think establishing somewhat of a idea of what everything is or where everything goes is going to be a lot smarter to do in the beginning process versus doing it later on. So with this, I'm just going to kind of shrink this down here and then just try to get the same proportions to our reference here. And that's going to be essentially the shelves here. And then we're just going to kind of bring this cube in, and this is going to be the countertop here. So again, not exact, but we're going to give it a kind of rough idea or rough sketch here. Just kind of draw out everything and make sure it is looking good here. Okay, so next up, I'm going to bring in another cube, and we're going to work on this back wall here. And so I'm just going to set that there, and then bring in another cube and set that about there. And then really with these, they're going to be the glass for the window here. So we're just setting that up. And then this other cube is going to be this nice divider in between the windows here. And so I'm just going to kind of shrink this down, kind of bring this out a little bit So we get this nice three-dimensional shape here that's quite nice. We're just going to copy and paste. I'm just going to shrink that down, and that's going to kind of remind me to really adjust this shape here. And then I'm just going to bring the camera in, and we're going to kind of play with this here. I'm going to copy and paste, rotate this 90 degrees and bring this up. And then that's going to give us that nice little cross that we have in our window here. So again, copy and paste, adjust the size, turn on fillet, and then just kind of lay this down on top of that beam here, and then copy and paste and kind of do the same thing at the bottom here. So we are making somewhat of these smaller details, even though I just said that we weren't going to. So I guess I don't like listening to my own advice here, so we're just gonna kind of play around with this. I guess sometimes too, I kind of just really don't make sense as far as the process goes. It's just kind of like more of a flow, and so I think this is definitely a balance, especially with any sort of architecture. It's a balance of both the analytical and the creative. And so sometimes one side takes over more than the other. And so kind of do things that really doesn't make sense to what your plan is. But overall, that's the process. So you kind of just end up going with the flow, even though if it's not entirely efficient, it's just kind of what the eye sees next. So anyways, so we're establishing the cross section here of some of these beams. So again, just easily copy and pasting these. They are a bit of a mess here, but of course we'll always go in and readjust these. But really, we're just kind of getting an outline of what these bars are going to look like here. Next up, I'm going to copy and paste our cube here. That is kind of the vent right above our oven here. And so I'm just going to kind of stack these up here. And then I'm just going to kind of elongate out this cube and then adjust it just to make sure that it is actually sitting on top of this cube that we brought in. And then I'm just going to bring in a bool, rearrange the order here. And then I'm just going to bring in our cube, adjust the size. And then we'll rotate this about 45 degrees to kind of give us that nice little edge. And then just bring this up. There we go, cool. So that gives us that nice shape here. And then we'll just kind of adjust this. There we go, cool. So that is looking a little bit better here. And then I'm just gonna adjust it just to make sure that it is looking right here. Cool. So next up, I'm going to bring in another cube. We're going to shrink this down. I'm going to turn on fillet here. And then this is going to be kind of this top portion where you kind of see that nice little edge here. And so we'll just place this here at the bottom. And then just kind of adjust this here. And then I'll just kind of look around just to make sure that is looking good. Copy and paste, bring this up, turn off fillet. And then just kind of adjust the size, and it is looking good. So I'm just going to copy and paste again, bring that up. And then same process where I'm essentially going to kind of stack these on top of each other. then I'm just going to kind of shrink down the size on this one. And then copy and paste again, bring this up, and then really just kind of push up this size here. We're trying to kind of get that same look here. I know it's kind of hard if you're looking at the reference here. You have to kind of identify what it's really looking like here. And so we can adjust the scope here just to see what it's looking like up close and then a bit farther away. And then, of course, I'm going to bring in another one here just to add in an extra edge here. And then copy and paste our cube, shrink this down. And then just kind of create, again, more of a layering effect with this. And then bring this up a little bit more. Copy and paste again. Turn off fillet. And then just kind of adjust this. And then bring in a shear, fit to parent. And then I'm just going to rotate our shear and then adjust the strength to about -15, and that's going to give us that nice edge here. And then, of course, copy and paste, bring this out, and then we're going to kind of create that nice little curve here right around the middle of the shape here. And so again, copy and pasting, and then really just kind of working on those edges at the top here. And then I'm just going to kind of go back in and just readjust our shape here. And then, of course, adjust the strength and kind of look at this a little bit more. And again, this process is very, very finicky. And so there's a lot of just minor adjustments just to make sure that we're representing the piece the best that we can at the time. So we're going to be doing a lot of that during this modeling process. So next up, I'm just going to bring in a cube and just kind of elongate this out and really just kind of create the foundation of this wall here. And then I'll shrink this down and then kind of create that nice little accent here. Again, copy and paste and stack this on top of each other. And so I'm sure you're seeing where this is going. So another copy and paste here, and then really just to kind of represent this line a little bit more. Turn off fillet, bring this down, turn it back on. So we have somewhat of a smaller edge. It's very faint to see in the reference, but it is kind of there. So we're just going to kind of create something that is small, so you can still kind of see it. But yeah, so again, copy and paste, and really just establishing those edges. So when the light hits it, it's going to have somewhat of a similar effect to our reference here. So, but I'm sure by now you can kind of see where this is going. So a few different copy and paste here. So just kind of recreating the same sort of idea here. Next up, I'm just going to kind of establish this shelf here. And then we do have to make some sort of foundational piece here. And so I'm just going to copy and paste. Turn on fillet again, and then just kind of readjust it just to kind of make that foundational piece that is present at the bottom of these cabinets here. And so I'll just kind of adjust the size here and adjust the radius. And so we want a nice little curve, but not have it too pronounced. So again, just kind of playing with where this is at. And then I'm just going to bring up this cube, reduce it down, and then just adjust it to the bottom here. And if you're looking at the reference, we're essentially making this piece here. And so again, just a lot of copy and pasting with the same cubes. And we're just kind of trying to recreate that same look here. But if you came here to see what extreme copy and pasting looks like, you came to the right place for sure. So, gosh. All right, so with this cube, we're just going to kind of establish this edge here. And so I'm just going to kind of elongate this out here and bring this down. And then I'm just going to bring in a cylinder here and then just kind of adjust the size. And then we're just going to kind of place this right around this edge here. And then we'll bring in another cylinder, bring this up, and then I'll just adjust this. So we're just kind of establishing the outline of this bottom cabinet here. And then I'm just going to shrink this down. And then of course, copy and paste, turn off fillet. And we're just kind of working on these small details here. And so again, a lot of this is just going to be copy and paste a lot of these cubes and just kind of creating that nice outline here. I'm not going to continue to say copy and paste, but you know, you guys get the idea. So we're essentially just establishing the lines of this cabinet here, and we're just a lot of adjusting and then turning on and off fillet here. So pretty straightforward. It's just kind of a time-consuming process of creating this whole thing, especially trying to make sure that everything is to scale and that you're representing the piece correctly. So these next few minutes here, I'm just going to kind of build out this cabinet, and we'll take it from there. I think that was probably one of the most difficult parts of this piece, is just there's so much detail and there's so much going on that, you know, it even made me have to kind of separate out these videos. Realistically, I wanted this kind of more of an all-in-one so you could see the modeling and see me kind of apply colors, but after editing and kind of breaking down the scene here, it was going to last about 6 hours, so didn't want to do that to you guys at all. So especially watching a 6-hour video is a little daunting, so decided to kind of break that up just because there's just so much that's going on, not just in modeling but also with the lighting and the colors. It's a lot easier to kind of break it up into multiple different videos. But again, the hardest part of this was just being patient and being disciplined enough to really represent those details as much as possible with the time allotted. So again, we're still working on this cabinet over here. We're doing this top shelf here. Let me know what you guys think as far as me bringing up the reference here. I think that it's kind of helpful to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at, but if it's, you know, somewhat annoying, or if you already have a good idea of it, just let me know, and then I'll kind of adjust it from there. But yeah, I'll throw up the reference every now and then, just kind of show you guys what exactly we're working on. But I'm sure you guys know that we're still working on this cabinet at the bottom right of our scene here. So again, just kind of playing with our shapes and really just kind of jumping in and out of perspective just to see exactly what that's looking like. And what I'll do is actually hop into the Redshift camera here, and then I'll bring up the render view, press play, and bring up the camera. And so with this, I kind of get an idea of what everything is looking like. And I'm just kind of looking at our reference here, and then just kind of making sure that everything is looking good. Now, we do have things that are slightly out of proportion, like our island here. Let me actually pop this into 2K just to make sure that this is looking good. So we do have a lot of space in the foreground and also on the left side of our scene, so we will have to adjust that. I think it's pretty easy, especially with this one, to kind of get overwhelmed with all the stuff you have to do and kind of balance, but we'll definitely get there. So it's definitely a marathon with this one. So, but really, I'm just trying to kind of go back in and kind of create the nice little details here. But yeah, it's a bit of a balance between balancing the big picture and the minor details. Anyways, we'll cut that off here. We will readjust our scene and kind of go back in, especially when we're working with details. We kind of want to have a better view of what all this is looking like. So we're just going to zoom in here and kind of build up this scene here. And so it is a little difficult to kind of see in the reference. So sometimes if there's something we can't necessarily see, we either do a little bit of guesswork or we can leave that blank completely, just because with our perspective, the camera's never going to see that with our perspective. We necessarily don't have to put anything there. And so, of course, if you are working within different perspectives, or if you're just trying to create a scene in its entirety, it is important to kind of finish the scene. But if you're just doing one perspective, I would just kind of leave it alone, just to kind of give yourself time here. So next up, what I'm doing is I'm bringing in these cubes here, and with these cubes here, I'm just creating a outline of this far cabinet here. And so again, if you're looking at the reference, this is the area that we're working on here. And so I'm just trying to bring in a few cubes here and adjusting it just to make sure that we are getting the correct proportion and the lines right here. You really can't see in the reference, but I would imagine that there's another line here, so we're just going to copy and paste and put that there. And then with this, I'm just going to readjust our cabinets. copy and paste again, and then this will be the top portion of this cabinet here. And then we'll bring in another cube, turn off fillet, bring in a shear, fit the parent, and then just kind of adjust this. And like we did last time, I'm just gonna rotate this shear and then adjust it that way. And so as you can see, we get that nice little curvature in our shape. And then I'll turn off our shear as well, just to kind of clean up the viewport here. And then similar process to what we did above the stove here. We're just kind of copy and pasting and just kind of creating that nice little detail here. So, and then we'll kind of do the same thing with this other side here on the right side. And so we're just bringing in a few different edges here just to kind of add a little bit more detail to the space. Of course, copy and paste, bring this over. And then with this, I'm just going to copy and paste, kind of bring this down here. And we're going to kind of create that box that you see within the reference. And then just kind of shrink this down. And then I'll just kind of bring these two down. Just going to copy and paste, bring this up. And then of course do the same thing on this other side here. And so cool, we have that box here. So we'll just kind of bring our camera out just to kind of see everything. I'm gonna give it a quick save, bring up the render view, press play, pop into perspective, jump over to 2K. And then I'm just going to select all of this. And we kind of need to clean up the scene here. So just kind of looking at this, like I said earlier, the island is a little off here as far as where it's located. So I'm just going to select our island here and then kind of push this towards these cabinets a little bit more, just because it doesn't look like there's too much space that is in between these. Of course, I would imagine there is quite a bit of space, but as far as the perspective goes, we just kind of need to adjust that to kind of make it look right. Next up, what I'm going to do is just kind of work on this back area here. And so I'm just going to take this cube and then kind of push this up against this window area here. And really with this, I'm just kind of outlining the general idea of our window here. And so I'm just going to copy and paste, turn off our bends, fit the parent, and then I'm just going to go in and adjust our segments so we have this nice curve here, and then just kind of rotate this. So this is a little too curvy here, so we're just going to reduce the strength just because we need this kind of a smaller arc here. And then I'm just going to kind of rotate this, bring this over, kind of bring this down a bit. It still is a little curvy here, but we'll have this here as the general concept, and we'll just kind of go back into this. And to finish this off, I'm just going to bring in another cube and just kind of fill up this back area just so we have a kind of a complete wall back here. And so, cool. All right, so next up, guess what? Another cube. So we're going to bring up the Redshift render view, Again, I just like to have the render view up whenever I'm establishing some sort of major piece, just because I want to see the general perspective as I'm working within the render view here. And then with that cube here, we're just establishing the idea of this table. And then I'm just going to kind of adjust this beam real quick. And then we'll just kind of go back in and adjust this here. I'll copy and paste. And then I'm just going to shrink this down a bit. And then just make it a little thinner here. And then bring this up. If you can see in the reference, we're just making that bottom portion here real quick. Of course, it's not perfect, but we're just kind of establishing the area here. Next up, I'm going to copy and paste this cube, and then we'll just rotate this here. And then this is going to be the top portion of our kind of like the recess area where this light is coming through. And so we're starting to kind of create this back area here. And this is where it kind of gets a little tricky here, just because we're still trying to establish the foundation of this piece. We're trying to keep everything somewhat similar to our reference. But of course, when you're establishing certain pieces and you're not putting a ton of detail into it, you will have to go back and rework it. I'm just going to kind of adjust this curve just because it's not as curved as we put it here. And so I'm just going to kind of rotate this and bring this down. And that's a little bit better here. We're getting closer. I could feel it. But I'm just going to kind of adjust this just because it has a slight curve, but it's not necessarily like this arc figure at all. So we'll just continue to play around with this, both the position and the strength here, just to make sure that it is looking pretty good here. Next up with this cube, I gotta shrink down this cube a little bit more. So I'll just kind of bring up this cube here just to adjust. And then bring this down. And then of course we're getting this clipping around this arc area, so we might just have to kind of shrink this down and work this corner area a little bit better. What I'll actually do is just copy and paste this and kind of stack this on top here. And then I'm just going to kind of rotate this, bring this over. So this is just going to be the top portion of this wall here. And then we'll just bring in this other cube. I'll shrink it down and adjust it to this back corner here. Pretty nice so far. So what I'm actually going to do is go into Redshift. There's a glass material. I said we're only doing modeling, but I promise it's just going to be this glass material. I just want to kind of play around with lighting a little bit, especially with all of these shapes. I feel like it's just getting very messy, and so I want to be able to bring in some light and kind of play around with that and play around with our shapes, just to make sure that we're getting kind of the correct look here. So with this cube, I'm just going to bring this down here and then kind of work this on the back wall. And it is a little too much here, so I'm just going to kind of delete this. I'm just going to take this cube, bring this back, and then I'll just copy and paste this. Bring this over and over here. And then I'm just going to bring these up just because there is a little space here, and then just kind of adjust the size of this wall. And so I think this is probably the toughest part here, is to kind of get the right look, just because there's a lot of detail on top of our cubes here. And so I think with this, I did bring in a lot of cubes instead of establishing one major wall and then adding in detail. So I think with that, I did kind of mess that up a little bit, but we'll just kind of roll with it and see what we can do here. So I am turning on fillet for both of these, just to give us a nice rounded edge to kind of achieve that look here. Next up, I'm going to bring in a cylinder. We're gonna rotate that. And then I'm just going to kind of bring this over to the bottom portion here. And then we're just gonna get a nice kind of cylindrical shape here at the bottom of this beam. And then of course we're going to do the same thing on this other side. So the notorious copy and paste with the rotate in the back corner. And then I'm just going to bring this over, adjust this. And then I'll select both of these and then really just kind of adjust it so we have this nice edge here. And so I'm just kind of looking at the top of our Redshift render view, and we're getting the edge here. And so I just want to kind of establish that correctly here. So that's looking good for now. And then what I need to do is just kind of bring these shapes up just so it's kind of flush against the wall. So we're just going to grab all of our beams here and then just kind of work them to the top here. Looking a little bit better. I'm just going to grab these. They're kind of bugging me, so I'm just going to adjust it. I'm gonna bring this one over, bring this down a little bit. All right, so what to do next? Let's see. Let's actually go over here. We're just going to grab these. I'm going to bring this up just to readjust the scale here. Bring these down actually. And then with this, I'm just kind of doing some minor adjustments. Same with this table. It's a little too wide, so we're just going to adjust that here. All right, so next up, we're just going to hop into a different scene here, and we're going to start building these lanterns that we see here. And so this is going to be an interesting process. I've never kind of made these shapes before, so we're just going to kind of play around with this here. So I'm just going to increase the segments here. And then just kind of adjust our squash and stretch. And then I'm just going to bring in a cylinder. and then just kind of adjust this here. And then what I'm going to do is just bring in a camera just so I have a stable camera here. And then just kind of bring that down. We're just going to turn off our squash and stretch. And then bring in a taper here just to adjust our cylinder. And then we're going to bring in a tube, turn on fillet, and then we're just going to give us, and that's just going to give us a nice little ring here. And then I'm just going to increase the segments just so we don't have any sort of edges here. And then we'll just kind of adjust this. Bring this down. Next up, I'm just going to copy and paste our cylinder. And then I'm just going to rotate this here. Again, copy and paste. Bring this down. And then I'm going to turn on fillet for this one and increase the segments a bit. And then I'm just going to make some minor adjustments here. Next up, I'm going to bring in a sphere, just to make that quite large here. And create a hemisphere out of this. So essentially we're cutting this in half. Just bringing this down. And then I'll bring in a bulge. Fit the parent to our sphere, and then I'll just kind of widen that out a little bit here. Increase our segments so we have a kind of a nice curve here without any sort of edges. And then I'll just kind of go back in and adjust some of the scaling of our pieces here. But yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. Really, we're just making the top portion of our light here. Next up, I'm going to bring in a taper and really just kind of taper this off to give us a better curve here to our sphere. And then we'll just kind of play around with both the taper and the bulge here just to create a few different looks. And then I'm just going to go in and adjust our segments here. And then just turn off fillet. And then I'm just going to go back in and, like I said, just kind of readjusting some of this. I'm looking at our reference here and then just kind of playing around with this look. And then just to make sure, I'm just kind of spending some extra time on this just because we are going to copy and paste these. So if we can make one model that is looking pretty good, all of our lights are going to look pretty good because of that. And so again, just kind of readjusting some of this just to make sure that we are getting the right scale. So next up, I'm going to bring in a tube and then just adjust it here. And really with this tube, we're just going to create that outline that is around the bottom portion of the lamp here. So right before the glass, we do have this nice little band that wraps around here. So we're just kind of creating that look here. And so I'm just going to bring in a bowl here selecting all of these and bring these in. And then really what I can actually do instead of making the band first is just readjust this and then bring in this band and then adjust it to the bottom portion here. So next up, I was playing around with this bottle here, and I think this bottle has a really great shape here. So what we're going to do is just kind of deconstruct this soda bottle here. And so I'm just going to kind of make this editable, and then of course just kind of highlight all of this. And really I'm just deleting this bottom portion of the bottle just because we don't need this. Really what we're looking for is that nice curvature that comes with this top portion of the bottle. So I'm just going to kind of go around this model and then just delete all of this. And then just kind of clean this up here. Same with this and this as well. And then get these as well. There we go. Cool. So I'll bring back our lamp here, give it a quick save, and then bring the body of that bottle that we have. And then I'm just going to adjust the scale and then bring this up. And I'm just going to kind of readjust this camera so I can kind of see everything here. Just decrease that size. And then just turn off these tapers here. And then what we need to do is just kind of get rid of this bottom portion. So similar to what I did, I'm just going to highlight all of this. And we're just gonna get rid of this. So similar to what I did earlier is I'm just going to highlight all of this, and we're just going to kind of get rid of all of this. So I'm just going to highlight this, select it, press delete here. And then we'll just have to clean up this bottom portion here. Just grab all of this, hit delete. And then same thing with these ones at the bottom. Kind of zoom in here, clean up this bottom portion. And then same here at the top. And I'm just going to go around this shape here and just kind of delete some of the pieces we don't need. So all of this here. Highlight this, delete all of this here. And I'm being extra careful just to make sure I'm not deleting anything that I don't want to delete here. So really just kind of going around this. Cool. So looking pretty good here. We have the general shape. Gonna bring this up. Next up, I'm going to bring in a tube, and we're just going to adjust it to the bottom here. And then we're just going to kind of create a ring and then create another one here. Turn off fillet for this one. And then just kind of adjust the size here. Next up, I'm going to bring in a sphere, and this sphere is going to be placed at the top here. All right, so now that we have the basic idea of our lamp here, we're just going to copy this, go back into our scene and hit paste. And now we're just going to bring this into the scene here. And now we have a mega lamp here. So we don't need any other light. We have this massive light here that shines throughout the entire kitchen here. So now we're just going to kind of scale this down here and then just kind of put it in the right position. And right now I'm just looking at the reference, just kind of seeing what it is looking like. And then we're just going to copy and paste, bring this over here, copy and paste again. And then this one's a little funky. This one's kind of off over to the side here and somewhat down like this. Even though that doesn't make technical sense, it does help us as far as getting the perspective right. We'll just we'll just kind of roll with that. So next up, I'm going to bring in our tube here and then just kind of adjust our tube here. Bring this down. And really with this tube, I'm just trying to get it flush against the glass portion of our lights here. And so I'm just going to increase our segments here just to make sure that is completely round without having any sort of edges here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste, kind of bring this down. Turn on fillet to kind of give us a nice little rounded edge. And then I'm just going to turn off our original tube here. Now I'm going to kind of delete some portions of this body here. And so I'm just going to throw this into our perspective, kind of zoom in. And then similar to what I did, I'm just going to grab all of these, highlight and delete them. And then I'm just gonna kind of rotate my way around the shape and then just kind of highlight and delete this portion here. So just all of this. Delete this and then back here as well. And then highlight this. Delete these, this one too, and then this as well. Hit delete. And then same thing with this top portion here. And then just kind of clean up this area. All this. Cool. So we have pretty much what we're looking at here. Now I'm just going to jump back into perspective and then just delete all of this here. And the reason I'm deleting this is because this material is going to be glass. It's going to be see-through. We want to make sure that this is all kind of taken care of here. And then I do have to kind of just be careful just not to delete anything that I actually need here. So again, I'm just going to kind of rotate around and delete. Delete this, and then cool. So that's looking a little bit better here. And then we can kind of see in the render view what that looks like. And then I'm just going to bring in those shapes into our lamp. Have these turned on here. I'm just going to delete this shape here. And this one too. Cool. So, and then we're just going to delete the rest of these lamps and then do that same process, copy and paste, and then we're just going to kind of adjust it to the scene here. So cool, we're getting there. Slowly but surely we're getting there. So it's pretty cool just seeing how this kind of all comes together. We got tons to work on still, but it's looking pretty good so far. So all right, so next up we're just going to kind of work on this top portion here. I'm just going to take this shape and just kind of elongate this out, and then just grab this shape and actually just the cylinder here. Actually, I'm going to grab these two shapes here and then just adjust it. There we go. Now that curve, that angle over there at the top looks a lot better there. So awesome. So next up, we're going to bring in some lights. We're going to see how some lights interact with the scene here. So I'm just going to bring in a area light, and then I'm just going to rotate this here. And then with this, what I'm eventually going to do is we're just going to kind of create a light source in the back here, and then just create a nice light that is outside these windows here, just to kind of see how it is as far as like light coming in through the window here. So and then if you do look at our reference, the light is kind of like a warmer hue. So we're just going to try to find something that is a little warm, not too warm, but just a little bit here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste and rotate here and bring this up and over the top here, just because we do have that nice highlight coming from the top here, but it's not insanely bright. So I'm just going to kind of move this over. Next up, I'm going to bring in a spotlight, and we're going to create this nice little highlight on the top here. So I'm just going to go into the Grayscale Gorilla library, and they have a ton of different gobos here to kind of give us a nice little plant look here. And so as you can see, there's a few different gobos here, but really we're just looking for a few plant options. And so we'll just kind of key that in to the spotlight here, and then I'll just kind of rotate this, bring this back, and that gives us that nice little look of trees kind of coming in. And then I'll just increase that exposure, and then just add in a slight warmness to it, and then just bring this over a bit. And then I'm just gonna kick it over to 2 for the exposure. Actually, let me see what 3 is like here. 3 is a little bit better, but of course, once we start adding in colors, these lights are going to interact a little bit different just because of how it bounces off both the colors and or the materials. And so again, we're just getting a general idea of what this is going to look like. Of course, controlling the lights are going to be really essential with creating the foundation of what this looks like. You can kind of have exactly everything that you want here, but if the lights are not right, it is going to be pretty tough. So there is a nice shadow over here, so what I'm going to do is just bring in a cube here and just kind of establish a wall just to make sure that there's not a ton of light peeking in here. So really with this cube, we're just trying to control the amount of light that is hitting the scene, just so we can kind of preserve our shadows and really establish our highlights here. So next up, I'm just going to copy and paste that same light and bring this over and kind of play with it here just to create that highlight at the top corner that we have. Going to copy and paste again, bring this over, and then just kind of bring this down. And then I'm just going to kind of rotate this. Come over here real quick and then rotate this about 90 degrees. And push this back. And then kick this down to about 2. And then bring this over. So it gives us a nice little light source, but not a ton here. Next up, I'm going to bring in a dome light. And then we have a ton of HDRIs, so I'm just going to kind of plug this one in and see how this looks here. And that's looking pretty good here. So, of course, we do have some other HDRIs. Let's see, just kind of looking through here. Let's try out this one. Let's see how this looks. That one's pretty interesting. It gives a nice blue look. We kind of keep that same warmness from some of the lights that we brought in, but that definitely gives us more of a cooler tone on top of that. And then with this here, you do get some cool colors, but really it's just overall warm. And then I'm just going to kind of turn off this background here. And then next up, what I'm going to do is just go and grab a similar picture of what our reference looks like as far as our background goes outside the window. And so I eventually found this one here. So we're just going to bring this over. And the way we're doing this is we're using the area lights and we're turning on the area light here so we can actually see the image within the area lights. And so I'm just kind of adjusting it to the window here, and then I want to make sure that this looks pretty close here, so I'm just going to kind of push this up against our window, and then we're just going to kind of adjust the scale here. Cool. So of course I couldn't find the exact one, but I found something similar as far as kind of a grassy area with some trees. And then I'll just kind of kick down the intensity to 1. And then, yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's see what 1.5 is like. And yeah, that's a good compromise between 1 and 2. So, looking pretty good so far. So we got the idea of our lighting here, and then we have kind of like a basic idea of what our scene is looking like. Next up, I'm just going to copy and paste, kind of bring this down. We're just going to kind of readjust this area here, and then just bring down this cube as well. And then same thing with these shapes, just going to bring these down just to kind of fix the scaling a little bit. And then I'm just going to copy and paste our shape, kind of shrink this and bring this up here. And really, if you're looking at the reference, what I'm doing is I'm establishing this little corner here. So it's kind of hard to see between the lights, but there's this foundational corner area with this nice little arm that's kind of coming out of it. So next up, I'm going to bring in this sphere, and then we're going to kind of bring this over to the top here to kind of give us a nice rounded look here. And this area doesn't have to be extremely detailed just because it's very kind of hard to see, but we need to kind of establish it at least here. So we're just going to kind of play around with a few spheres. And then I'll bring in the cylinder here and then just bring this over. Of course, adjust the scale. And then kind of make sure that this is sitting on top of our sphere. And then bringing this down. Cool. So I'm just going to copy and paste what we just did, rotate this 180, bring this up. So we're just kind of basically creating that same shape here. And then I'm just going to kind of adjust these real quick. Let me just kind of zoom in here. Bring this over. Copy and paste. Bring this over to the side. Just increase the scale. Bring this back. And then just widen it out a bit. Cool. So we're just establishing the back part of this cabinet here. And then we're just going to take this one. And then actually let me turn off all of these lights just so we can kind of see the scene a little bit better here. Now I'm going to copy and paste, bring this over, copy and paste again. And really with this, I'm just kind of remaking these shapes here. And then I'm just going to grab all of these, copy and paste, rotate this, and then just bring this back and then over here. And that kind of creates that same sort of shape. So if you look at the reference, we do have this nice glass portion that is in this cabinet here. So we're just going to establish that real quick. I'm going to bring in a few cubes here, and we're just going to copy and paste to kind of give us a general outline of this area. And then of course I'll kind of bring this up here. Cool. So, and then with this I'll turn on fillet, and then I'll just adjust this size here. Cool, so looking pretty good so far. What I'm going to do is just copy and paste, and then we're just going to kind of create this backside real quick. It's kind of something that's kind of funky that I really can't see here. And so maybe with throwing in some cubes here, I could kind of recreate that same look. but I technically really don't know what's going on back here. So I'm just going to use a few of these cubes just to kind of recreate that. Just because you have the wall that is almost like warped into the window here almost. And so I'm going to kind of try and play around with these cubes here to create that same look here. So and then of course this kind of goes all the way to the top part of the wall here. So we're just doing that here. Cool. So I think that's looking okay. I wish I knew what was going on there, but it seems kind of funky. Actually, I'm just going to delete that for now, and then we'll kind of play with that here later. And then I'm just going to kind of readjust the scale here, and then just add some of these accents onto the cabinets here. And then with this, I'm just going to increase our segments, just because we do need to kind of cut out this portion. And then I'm going to press C to make it editable. Highlight all of these. And then just delete these out. Cool, so that kind of gives us that nice cut there. And then I'm just going to copy and paste our nearest cube, turn off fillet, bring this down, kind of shrink this to the surface here and bring this up. And apply the glass there, so we have that nice glass reflection to our cabinet there. So looking pretty good. Next up, I'm going to bring up Grayscale Gorilla. We're going to go back into our models. I'm going to grab a plate here. And then I'm just going to type in bowl. And we're just going to grab some models here, just kind of fill up the scene, especially the countertops too. And then I'm just going to type in vase as well. And this one is looking pretty good, so we're just going to bring that in here. And then of course, since the scale is off, we will readjust this. So I'm just going to increase the scale on this one. And bring it down to the table here. And then just kind of adjust it similar to the reference here. So now we're getting in the portion where we're going to kind of decorate the scene a little bit more. So I'm going to grab this plate, bring this over. And again, just kind of adjust the scale. Increase the size here, and then bring this down. Cool, so it is over here, and I want to make sure that this is actually touching the countertop and it's not floating on top here. So cool. Now I'm going to copy and paste again, bring this over, and kind of adjust this here. Now I'm going to give it a quick save here. Next up, I'm going to bring in all of these models here. I did find a lot of these on Quixel Bridge. They're just kind of basic shapes here, so I just have taken these and then I stripped it of its color. So really, I'm just looking for the general shape. Next up, as you can see, I'm in the Redshift library here, and we're going to kind of bring in a few flowers here. They're not exactly the same to what we had, but they're better than nothing. So we're just going to bring in these flowers here, and we're going to kind of see what this looks like. So I'm going to bring up the Redshift render view here, and it's going to take a quick second here. And then there we go. Cool. So got these flowers. So I'm just going to push this one back a little bit. To about here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste the same one. Hit save just to make sure it does not crash on me. And then we'll shrink this down. Bring this over. And then we'll kind of set this up around here. Let me just kind of move this over. Cool. So I'm just trying to make sure the scale's right and that we're kind of covering up everything. So that looks good. I'm going to turn it off for now, just because we don't want it to kind of slow down the scene. So I'm just going to turn this off. And then we have all of these cool cups and bowls that we got from Quixel Bridge. So I'm just going to kind of grab all of these and just kind of move these off of each other just to kind of see everything that we're working with. And then I'm just going to kind of grab each one here and kind of adjust it to the shelf here. Of course, we're going to adjust the size here. And then I'm just going to bring this one down. Bring this down, move this over to this far side here. And then again, just adjust the scale and kind of put this on the corner. Let's see what we got. We'll take this one. This is very similar to the one that's actually on the counter. So we'll put this here. I'm going to bring in a cube and then kind of create that same look here. So I'll shrink this down. Make sure it's kind of flat against the counter here. Turn on fillet to kind of give us a nice rounded edge. And then kind of adjust the cup here to about here. And then just kind of bring this up to about there. Cool. So looking pretty good. Next up, I'm going to bring this bowl and bring this up here. Right about there. All right, so next up, I'm going to bring this cup over here and bring it off to this other side. All right, so next up, I'm going to bring in this sphere and then just kind of adjust it. And then I'll bring this up. Bring in the bowl. And then I'll take that cube and the sphere, put it in the bowl, and then we'll use this cube to kind of cut off this sphere so it has this nice bowl shape here. So Next up, I'm going to bring this cup, bring this over. Same with this one. Bring this up, bring this over as well. Give it a quick save, adjust the size real quick. And then just make sure that it is actually sitting on top of the surface there and not just floating. And then I'm going to take that same bowl, bring this over. Always give it a quick save whenever I adjust it. Copy and paste, bring this one over, and put this on our top shelf. Always have to save it, adjust the size. Because usually it's that time that you don't save it is when it crashes and you lose everything. No, but that is pretty frustrating. It usually is the time that you don't save it. It usually crashes. So I always try to make sure to save it out of habit. So just to make sure that I don't have to go back and redo some stuff. Of course, copy and paste. Bring this over. And we're going to make a bowl over by the table here. So same thing, just trying to make sure that it is sitting on the table here. And then I'll just adjust it. I'll adjust this cup here. Bring this over. Cool, so it's starting to shape up quite a bit here. You could see it especially in the render view, so I'm liking it quite a bit here. And then I'll just take the next several moments to kind of continue to adjust this area. I'm going to bring in a cylinder, bring this over, and in the reference it does look somewhat like a coffee pot, so we're going to create some sort of similar shape here rather simply. So with this cylinder, I'm just going to kind of expand the edges here, throw in a bulge, and then increase that size here. And then just kind of bulk it up a little bit more, and then we'll just increase those segments here. Cool, so looking good. Bring this bowl over and put it right kind of between both of these shapes here. So next up, I'm gonna grab this leg. Actually, I'm going to adjust this. I'm going to copy and paste this over here, and then just add in an accent at the top here. All right, so next up, we got to work on this island. So I'm just going to copy and paste these shapes. We're going to rotate this and just make it 90 degrees here, and then bring this over. And then we're going to kind of make some of these shapes on this other side of our island here. And really with this, I'm just trying to make the correct shape here. So we're just going to kind of bring these and kind of play around with them. Let me adjust some of the length here on this side. and then just kind of bring this over. I'll select the one in the middle. Actually, I'm going to copy and paste, bring this over, delete those, and then just kind of start this middle from scratch here. And then just shrink this down. Cool. And then I'll delete the top and then just copy and paste the bottom. That's going to give us a nice square. And then I'll bring up the Redshift render view. Fit the window. And then I'm just going to adjust the look here. Cool, so next up, what we're going to do is we're going to work on this wall. Needs to be deleted. I'm not going to delete it entirely, but just kind of work around this area. I'm just going to turn that off real quick. I'm going to copy and paste this. And then bring this over to about here. Copy and paste again. And then same thing, bring this over. And I'm gonna reduce down this size. It is a little bit smaller. Cool, and then I'm just going to adjust it just slightly here. And then bring this down. Same thing, copy and paste, bring this over. And then I'm just going to kind of adjust the body of our island here just because it is a little long, so we're going to kind of readjust this. And of course, since we adjust the body, we'll probably have to adjust everything else as well. So I'm going to go back in and just grab those. And of course, this is the tough part of not being organized in your object manager here. You always kind of have to kind of figure out which one is which. So if you can maybe take the time and really kind of organize your object manager, that's going to be the best thing for you, especially finding shapes or if you're readjusting stuff. It is kind of a pain to kind of go back in, but for me personally, I kind of get into a flow of doing stuff and start working on the next thing and the next thing. And so I end up creating this mess of 50 cylinders and 800 cubes, and so but if you could kind of manage that a little bit better, that would be my personal advice. However, even though I give that advice, I don't necessarily follow it myself, but I know that's the I know that's the better way of going about it. So but yeah, just a helpful tip there, because during this process it was kind of a pain to have to go find every single one and then select those and adjust it. So it just takes extra time here. So again, just adjusting some of this. I am trying to make sure that these are all to scale. And then we do still have to fix the bottom portion. So but let me adjust this last one real quick. Cool. So I'll just shrink this down. And then just kind of bring this over here. I'm just kind of looking around, just making sure that everything is good. And then I'm just going to kind of tweak our perspective here. And then just bring our island up. And then as you can see, the island is floating in the air in our scene. However, if you look at our reference, we do have a lot of dark shadows near the bottom. And so even though it's technically not realistic to have this thing floating, I do it just to help create the shadows here. Same thing with kind of what we did with the lights. It really doesn't make any technical sense, but it helps out as far as achieving the same look here. And so sometimes you can kind of cheat it that way, but I guess whichever way you can kind of get it, then I guess that's good for us. So next up, I need to bring in the stove here. And so really with this stove, what I'm looking for is just the dials primarily. So we're just going to kind of bring this in, and then also the burners, the stove burners would be nice to have instead of having to make that ourselves. So originally I'm just going to adjust the oven here, but we're gonna kind of rework this eventually. But I'm just going to adjust the scale, bring this down, and kind of push this back here. Cool. So even though we're not using this, I still want to get the general idea of what this is looking like compared to our reference. So I'm just going to kind of take a second here and really just adjust this. And then bring this cup and this board over. So I'm just going to highlight both of these. Actually, let me take this one out, and then I'm gonna bring this over just slightly here. So in the viewport, you can see that it's kind of clipping into the oven. However, if you look at our perspective within the render view, it looks it looks pretty good. So of course, everything is about perspective when it comes to stuff like this. So all right, so I'm going to delete that handle here. And then these are primarily what we want to keep out of our oven. So I'm going to take that and then bring those out here just because we want to hold on to those. And then I'm going to grab these and just delete them. And actually, I did forget some of these, so I actually do want to keep these burners here. So we'll actually move this out of the null, and then we'll just go ahead and delete the rest of the stove here. And then what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and bring in a cube, and we're just gonna basically remake that stove here. And then just kind of bring this up, turn on fillet, just give us a nice rounded edge. And then I'm going to hop into our perspective here, and then really just kind of make sure that we are getting this right. And then actually just making it somewhat smaller would probably be best, especially since with our perspective, we really don't see a ton of the oven with the island kind of sitting there. So if we can kind of achieve the same look with a little less time spent on it, that'll probably be best. And then this cube here, we're going to use that as kind of like the front of the oven. And so I'll just kind of reduce down the fillet radius there. Next up, I'm going to copy and paste. Actually, I'm going to bring in a cylinder. We're gonna bring this out and I'm gonna rotate this. Bring this up to our oven. Shrink this down. Bring this out. And really, that's gonna be that rounded edge off of this oven. And again, I'm just trying to get a rounded look off of this. And then I'm going to hop into our perspective, grab another cube, and then just kind of shrink this down here. Next, I'm going to bring in a shear. And then just kind of play with the strength. And throw in a bulge. Do a quick save and then just adjust the scale. And then just kind of bring these to the front. Just because we do have our dials in the front in our reference here, so we're just going to use that. And then of course I'll adjust it so it's kind of nice and straight on that oven there. So now we're cooking. So I had to do that. All right, so let's adjust that here. I'm kind of bring this over. Cool. Bring that over to the right. Now I'm going to grab all these and then just kind of adjust them and then adjust the size as well. And then copy and paste and bring this over to the left. That's looking pretty good so far. Let's see. Let me give it a quick save. Next up, I'm going to bring in a null, call it oven, and throw all of our oven pieces into the null there. And then we'll just kind of adjust it here slightly. And then with this oven, due to our perspective, we don't have to put a ton of effort and detail, but we just have to get the general idea of it. So, but yeah, looking pretty good so far. So next, I'm going to kind of fix our countertop here just a little bit. Okay. And then I'll just adjust the bottom portion here. And then same thing with these shelves as well. All right, so I'm going to kind of take this up and move this in our object manager here. And then I'm just going to turn off the bulge here. And then I'm just going to take our table and kind of adjust it. Cool. So let's see. Next up, I'm going to kind of adjust our island, kind of bring it down a little bit more. And just slightly back a little bit. Of course, since we made that adjustment, we will have to adjust our plates there, but let me actually just work on this counter area over here. And then this is one of the things you run into when you don't organize your stuff. So you have to take extra time to try to find everything, especially when you have to do adjustments. So what I'm doing right here, you can avoid all of this by staying organized, but yeah, I did not do that. So unfortunately, to move stuff and to alter stuff, I have to go in and select almost every single cube here just to find what I'm looking for. So if you could stay organized, it's gonna help you out for sure. So but I'm organizing this real quick, and then I'll be able to kind of utilize this a little bit better here. So I'm gonna throw in a null and then kind of throw all of this into a null. So really I should have had this originally, but we'll just kind of work on this now. Now I'm going to take our counter and then I'm just going to kind of adjust it. And then I'm just really looking at our reference here and just kind of adjusting it to our perspective. Again, just kind of really honing in what this looks like. Cool, so next up, I'm gonna go over, select our plates, bring this over to the island, put this in our island null, bring this down. Now that if we ever do move the island, we won't have to go back in and adjust these plates. Cool, so I'm just taking a quick second, just kind of check our reference and what we have going on here. And then I'm just going to grab all of these, and then I'm just going to copy and paste, bring this over. And then really just kind of adjust this far side here. So I'm just gonna make some minor adjustments, kind of the same process of what I've been doing, but I'm just trying to kind of change this look over here to make sure that it's a little bit more to our reference here. So I'm gonna grab all of these here and then just adjust it. Just bring this up slightly. I'm going to copy and paste and bring this over. And this looks to be right in the middle, so I think we did a good job with that, just kind of eyeballing it a little bit. And then of course we have to readjust this this inner square here. So I'll just grab all of those, kind of bring that up. Cool, so next up, I'm going to select our islands, increase our segments. If you could see in the reference, there is like this cutout within the island, so we're just going to do that. So I'm just going to adjust the segments just so it's somewhat symmetrical here. So I'm just going to kind of increase this. And then just kind of bring our camera in. And then I'm actually going to put that at 100. And then I'm just going to count these real quick. Cool. So I'm going to take this, press C to make it editable. And then we're going to highlight these. Highlight this. hit delete. And then same thing on this other side. I'm just going to highlight these and delete as well. And that's going to give us that nice cutout there, and you can kind of see that in the render view. Next up, I'm going to bring in a cube, bring this down, kind of adjust it to our shelf here. And so you could kind of see it kind of pop out. So it looks like we do have some shelves here at the bottom. So that is looking pretty good. All right, so next up, what I'm going to do is just go back in and work on these shelves here. So I'm sure you know it's a lot of copy, paste, rotate, all that good stuff. So I'll just spend the next couple minutes here just applying the same shapes, and then I'll just kind of push this off to near the oven, just because that is a little bit more to what we have within our reference here. And then we'll have to kind of make up something here in the middle just to make it look nice, but it's not technically to exact proportion here. So it seems like in our reference this area is a lot bigger, and so, or even maybe that the counter area is a little bit smaller, and so the cabinet itself is a little bit bigger, so there's less of it. So we'll just kind of doctor up this area and just kind of fix it up. So, and then just kind of make sure that it's right on that oven. And then same thing here, just going to copy, paste, bring this over. Copy and paste again, bring this over again. So again, not exactly to the reference, but it looks looks pretty good here. So all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab all of this, and then we're going to move it over to the very left side of these cabinets here. So I'll do that here real quick. And then I'm just trying to kind of line it up appropriately here. And then of course, copy and paste and continue that pattern down this shelving space here. And I'm gonna grab all those, copy and paste, adjust this again. Same thing, copy and paste, bring this over. All right, so next up, what I'm going to do is go into Grayscale Gorilla. We're going to find this table here. And then we're actually gonna bring in this table here. And then I'm just going to put this over here. And then what we'll do is we'll actually keep some of these chairs, but what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this table real quick just to elongate it out. And then I'll take some of these legs off just to make sure that we do have somewhat of a long table here. That makes sense. And then I'm just going to rotate this chair. And then delete that leg. Same with this one. And then we do have our bowl here, so I'm just going to move our bowl and kind of bring this to the middle, kind of match it up to the reference here. And then I'm going to turn on these flowers here real quick just to make sure that what I'm doing makes sense as far as the reference goes. So I want to be able to see what I can see and not see what I can't see either. So I'm sure that makes complete sense, but basically I just don't want to kind of adjust these chairs to where they're not supposed to be. So I'm just going to adjust this bowl just because it is a little bit more to the left here. We'll adjust these chairs as well. Kind of bring this over. And then I'll take this chair, copy and paste, move this over. Delete this chair. Take these two, copy and paste, rotate these. Actually, I'm gonna undo that. I'm going to delete these entirely. And then same thing with this chair too. I'm just going to copy and paste these chairs, rotate these, and then just have them in front just so they're nice and uniform. And then I'm going to go back into Grayscale Gorilla, and I'm going to grab this jar here, and this jar is going to be real nice for our jar for these flowers here. And so we'll kind of bring that in and adjust it. So let me bring this over, and of course I'm going to have to adjust the scale, give it a quick save, and then bring this over. And then just increase the size, bring it down. I'll copy and paste that and then bring it over to our other flowers here. And then just reduce down the size and bring this up. Cool. So it is clipping here, but that is fine. As you can see, I just moved it while clipping it. So that's okay. Cool. So it's all pretty much coming together here. I'm just going to bring in another cylinder. I'm going to turn off our flowers for now. And then I'm just going to shrink this down. And then what I'm going to do is just throw in a bends, fit the parent, alter the strength. And then let me undo that real quick. Let me bring this up. And really with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a chain out of it, just because our lights are kind of just hanging there from nothing. So actually what I'm going to do is just set this up at a 90-degree angle. I'm going to copy and paste, and I'm going to rotate this and then kind of line this up to this other half here, and then we'll make a chain this way. So I'm gonna turn off the bend here, take these, copy and paste, rotate them. And then same thing, just turn off these bends, select these two, bring this down to about there. and then I'll copy and paste, delete the bends, so it's just straight up and down there, and then we'll just kind of connect these. And then I'll grab all of those, do a quick save, reduce down the size there. And then what we'll do is we'll do a lot of copy and pasting, rotating, just to kind of create the same sort of look as far as making a chain. And so I'll just kind of adjust this here. I'll bring in a null. Name it chain. And then I'm just going to grab a thicken and just kind of thicken that a bit, reduce down the size to about 2. And that looks pretty good here. Actually, a 1 is probably a little bit better. Let's see what 1.5 is. And yeah, we'll do a 1.5. So like I said, just going to copy and paste a few times, rotate it to make it look a little bit more organic as far as making the chain. And then once we kind of make the general idea of this chain, we'll be able to kind of rotate it and alter it, and then just kind of copy and paste it to some of our other lights here. So I'll just kind of do that process here real quick. So, like I said, just copy and paste it a few times here. And really the longest part of this process is just making sure that it is looking a bit more realistic here. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the modeling process goes. Pretty straightforward here. In the next episode, we will jump into colors, and of course, we'll kind of alter some of the modeling still. But really, we're going to focus on our colors and all that good stuff. So that's pretty much it for this section. Let's hop into the wrap-up section and take it from there. All right, so hopping into the wrap-up section, it was a long one today, but it was pretty cool being able to kind of model all of that. For the most part, we did most of the modeling ourselves. However, we did kind of use some outside sources like Grayscale Gorilla and Quixel Bridge to kind of bring in some fun shapes for us to use. And so it's always kind of nice to kind of both do it yourself and then kind of make it a little bit more efficient as far as making sure that you can kind of bring in some other shapes just to kind of help make the process a little bit quicker here. So that's pretty good here. What I did notice when editing this video, we really didn't get much into like some of the lights. Like we still have to do a lot of the light bulbs and a few other minor details. And so I did see that I kind of missed some stuff as well. I think what's interesting is going back and editing this, I see a lot of stuff that I should have done, or there's a lot of different interesting choices I decided to make during this process. But maybe just while you're working on any sort of projects, maybe just like record yourself as far as like the screen capture goes, and then just go back and watch and see what you did, or just kind of going back and reanalyzing in general will kind of get you a better perspective of what you kind of did right, or maybe what you might want to do different in the future. And so that's what's always interesting about editing this, is I can kind of go back and see what I did and did not do. And so it's pretty interesting there. So now in the future, I'm a little bit more diligent when it comes to working on all this stuff. But I know definitely in the moment, I'm focusing on making sure that I'm getting the proportions and the perspective right. And so, especially with a scene like this where there's just tons of stuff going on and different details and different surfaces, there's just a lot of stuff to juggle. And so, but I just thought that was a interesting point here. So other than that, that was pretty much it for the modeling process. Very much straightforward. A lot of copy and pasting, using fillet a lot, rotating. So what's interesting about this is it's not incredibly difficult. I would say this is definitely more creeping towards like intermediate as far as like difficulty level goes. But once you get like the essential foundation or the essential tools to Cinema 4D and you can kind of navigate around, there's really a lot of stuff you can do with minimal effort. And so we created this whole kitchen scene with using very similar techniques and nothing too advanced here. And so it'll be interesting coming up next with really tweaking some of our colors and then also some of our lighting as well, just to kind of see how that looks. So that's going to be a whole nother process. So let me know what you guys think. I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, it was pretty tedious and it did get frustrating at points, but you know, that kind of goes with everything. It's a part of the process. And at the end, you could definitely enjoy it a lot more, just seeing all the really cool details. So but yeah, that's pretty much it for this one today. Let me know what you guys think. If you like it, feel free to shoot up a like. I do know it is a long one. If you do have any questions, feel free to shoot it down in the comment section. But other than that, that's pretty much it for the video today. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.